skill right now on the team outside of the edge rusher spot? I know that's the main one, obviously, with the departure of Jaelan Phillips, but what's the most pressing one where you think they have to address this or it could really hurt their season?
Safety. I mean, they don't have a safety right now. If they had to play today, they don't have. You'd have to play Sidney Brown, I guess.
And what's your expectation on how they fill that? Do you think it's a draft pick?
I think it's going to be a trade. I
wouldn't feel great about a rookie safety with Andrew Maccubu. I don't think anybody
I don't like that either. Now, there's some talk about Michael Carter moving back there full time, but I don't think that's a plan that should generate confidence. You know, and you could, you know, they have Andre Sam back, Brandon Johnson. Did some nice things, but again, very young players on futures deals. That's not going to merit much confidence. I know people have often speculated, moved Kaylee Ringo back to safety because he can't play corner.
Is Sidney Brown out of the running?
From everything I've seen with the way Vic treats him, I would think, yeah, he's not in the conversation to be the starting safety. Still a good special teams player. He's still under contract, but I would think he'd more likely to be traded than to be the starting safety. Yeah, they don't have an answer in-house. So, and you could sign Marcus Epps as a stopgap. And I know people, because of the 2022 season where he did a pretty good job, not the same player. I don't think that'll work either. They need a safety, almost like they should have re-signed Reed Blankenship.
Right, at $8 million. I don't know, but the way they're crunching the cap, maybe Reed was way above what they were willing to pay. I mean, they're looking for $240,000 of savings on Jake Elliott's deal. Now I know they cut it from 6 to 5.
Well, they're not that's just they're not looking for anything. They're top 10 in cap space now.
I don't know, John. Yeah, I'm sure you've been through it. I mean, we've all been there. You know, the monthly budget is tight, and you're looking to get a penny back wherever you can, my friend. That seems like what the Eagles are doing to me.
Well, no, they're just setting up for things they want to do. And you know, there's a science to roster building, and you don't want to spend a lot of money getting out of kicker deals. Whereas, you know, everything changes and fluid. They paid a hell of a lot of money, and they'll pay a hell of a lot of money to get rid of, you know, Carson Wentz back in the day and so forth and so on at different positions. But there's different values to different positions. And, you know, the Eagles value quarterback 3 more than everybody else. So they're willing to pay more for a quarterback 3. They're not willing to take on dead money for a kicker.
Well, maybe they should change that.
Well, that's a valid argument. Maybe they should, but that's where they are. And obviously, you know, Howie overall, you got to be honest, has done a very good job. And generally his philosophy works. But, you know, even I am starting to look at the void years on these 1-year deals. And I'm like, I mean, that's starting to hurt you, dude. A little bit.
I don't get why they do them on all the 1 year. Like, wouldn't you rather just pay the $4 million and then have it off your books in the next year? I don't even get it. Like, I don't want to deal with contracts 4 years down the line that were $5 million.
Well, it's not. You're not dealing with that. It just accelerates into the second year. But you're losing $1 million here, $1 million there. And it's different with guys like Rick Woolen, who got a pretty significant 1-year deal. Like, I get it with him, because you don't want to put 12 to 15 million on your cap this year. So I get it with players like him. But, you know, why are you putting void years on Johnny Munt? You know, you're paying him $1.2 million. Just be done with it. So anyway, yeah. So it depending on the player.
We'll see what happens there. Good stuff, Johnny Mac. 20 minutes up to go on the show today. A lot of things happening here in the Eagles offseason, and 35 days until the NFL draft. Now in phase 2 of free agency. Any clear names, John, still out there that you look and you're like, ooh, that's an Eagle name? I wouldn't be surprised. One name that, John, that you were mentioning a lot on the show was AJ Espinoza. Is that how you say his name? He's kind of got a confusing name.
Yeah, he signed.
Yeah, he signed.
Well, and it really wasn't Eagles-like. It was simply because he was one of the few, competent, I think, edge rushers left. But I think they need a ceiling, a number one player. I don't think like he would be third, fourth rotational guy. Which if you have to go that way, and it's got to be Nolan, it's got to be Jalix, it's got to be Ebiketie, and a fourth guy. You got to find the fourth guy, but I want the one so everybody can kick down into their role. That's the problem at edge rusher. So that's got to be either be done on the trade market or it's got to be done in the draft. And I don't see
who's the unlikely trade player that we're not thinking of. Grenard's like the popular name, but who's the player we're not thinking of that could be traded? Maybe a guy going into his 5th year, maybe a rookie who needs a change of scenery. Who's the guy we're not thinking of right now, John, that's out there?
That's why we don't talk about it, because, I have no idea. But, that's how we shop. That's CJ Gardner-Johnson. That's what you're looking for. That's what you're looking for. Somebody with a big upside who, for whatever reason, his original team doesn't want to give him an extension, hasn't really reached his potential. That's the wheelhouse, and that's a very difficult wheelhouse to find. And it's even more difficult at edge rusher because nobody wants to give up edge rushers. Nobody, because everybody's looking for edge rushers. So it becomes even more difficult at that position. And that's why everybody's focused. The only reason Grenard's available is because they're in cap issue hell. And otherwise they bring him back. So it's really, it's really difficult. And that's why I say, like, it's easy to have that walkaway number. And we all get the walkaway number. People gave me a lot of shit for playing devil's advocate because they didn't want to hear me say devil's advocate. I'm not paying Jaelan Phillips $30 million, but the alternative is you're back to where you were before you traded for him. And that's, you don't have the guy to spearhead the edge rush. You don't have him. Hopefully Jalix Hunt turns into that, but that's a big hope. That's all it is. And you don't have that player now. So I get it, but if you're willing to go at 25, maybe you got to pay the price. Who said earlier this week, one of our guests, and I thought it was interesting, I have to write about that at some point, is that, Howie's got this philosophy of not extending players in season when he thinks he's a legitimate contender. And he's been very honest about it. And I think it was John Stolness. So I'll give John the credit. And it's like, maybe you have to change that philosophy. And maybe you have to treat people like adults, because there are going to be agents calling you saying, what, you don't like my guy? I want an extension. Well, deal with it. If you got Jaelan Phillips back at 23, 24 by extending him in season, you don't have this fucking problem.
Right. Still have the problem, though, of takes 2 to tango, right?
Yeah, but I truly believe he would have signed an extension in season, because at that point you don't know nobody's thinking about how the cap is going to explode. Nobody's thinking about that at that point. He's like, wow, I haven't played like a $25 million edge rusher and I'm getting 25. I think he would have ran to sign that paper. But then you get to the actual open market, it's like a Cowboys tax. Because you're waiting instead of, and Howie says it all the time, they want to act early, but they don't want to act early in season. Maybe they have to change that. And their approach has been, well, if we do it for one guy, the next guy's going to be at his door and the agent and all that kind of crap. Well, hey, that's something you got to deal with and explain, look, we love your guy, whatever, but this is a guy we had to get done early for these reasons. And I believe if they acted in season last year, he'd still be here and you wouldn't have this problem.
Well, we've now let a couple edge rushers go, and had to replace them, John. So, the wheel keeps on turning at that position. I don't understand why. Maybe they're not in love with the guy. I don't know. They let Sweat walk, and then they needed to replace him. Then they traded for Jaelan Phillips. Now they let Jaelan Phillips walk. Now we're in the same boat here. We're waiting for them to make a move at edge. It's like, just get one of them signed, man. Josh Sweat at this point looks like the greatest bargain in the world for what he signed for last year. Now, I know he's got the knee problems and stuff like that, but I don't know. I don't get why they keep this saga going.
Well, I mean, yeah, everything is different. You can't comp those two things because they were okay with letting Josh walk. Now you can argue they shouldn't have been okay. They made Jaelan Phillips a priority. He was their priority entering free agency this year. So different circumstance. They wanted to get Jaelan Phillips done. They didn't want to get Josh Sweat done. He was below the demarcation line I always talk about. Again, you can argue that, but they're completely different. And in the case of Phillips and John was the one who kind of put that in my mind. So that's why I give him credit, John Stolness. I'm like, you know what? He's right. If he revisited that, which has become a policy